Hello, witches. I am High Priestess Venus. Thank you for joining me this evening. Go ahead and share this broadcast with a witch or two or three. Text some witches, call some witches, DM some witches, because they definitely need this information, especially if they are a member of a coven or thinking about becoming a member of a coven. First things first, what is a coven? A coven is a group of witches, usually but not always, made up of 13 people. It can be a mix of male and female, or just female and just male, that come together to do witchcraft, and the leader is a high priest or a high priestess. But just because you have coven membership of a coven does not make you a witch. Just because you are a member of a coven does not mean that you are a witch. It does not. I know that might be shocking for some witches, but just because you are a coven member does not equal you being a witch. A witch is someone who does witchcraft. Witchcraft is working with the energy found in nature to bring about real, significant, and permanently positive change. You are a witch if you do a spell, ritual, hex, or curse, and it works. If your spells don't work, you are not a witch, because your spells did not work. You have to have a real anointed and appointed high priest or high priestess that can train you to be a witch. Being a witch really does come down to doing any inspired action. Doing what I call real world action. It's not enough to just do a spell. You can't do a spell to get a plus on a test without studying for that same test. You can do a spell to pass a test, but you also have to do your part by studying for the test. You have to give yourself at least half a chance. You have to. Just because you are a coven member does not mean that you are also a witch. So you can celebrate all of the Sabbaths. You can celebrate all of the cycles of the moon, like tonight. Tonight is August 3rd. It's a new moon. You can celebrate the new moon, but be careful about doing spells. You really do have to be trained by your high priest or high priestess if you are a coven member. Not all witches are also members of a coven. You can be a witch and be solitary. You can be a witch and work alone. You can be a witch and work with no goddess, no god, no ancestors, no familiars, no spirit animals, and still be a witch. Why? Because your spells work. You are only a witch if your spells work. If your spells don't work, you are not a witch. You are just a member of a coven that has no real significant and permanently positive change. If you are a member of a coven, or thinking about becoming a member of a coven, look closely at the high priest, the high priestess. Are they giving you the tools to have real significant and permanently positive change in your life? Are you seeing it in your own life? Are you struggling? If you are a member of a coven, you should have no struggle in your life. You should not be going through hard times, bad times, going through rough waters. You should not have any of that in your life. If your high priest or high priestess is truly anointed and appointed by the Coven's chosen god or goddess. There should be no struggle. There should be no lack. There should be no sorrow. There should be no grief. There should be no debt. There should be no sickness. There should be no, I've been doing the same spell over and over again and it's not working. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. It's the high priest. It's the high priestess. Sometimes covens have a high priest and a high priestess, even though that is rare. It's rare for a coven in today's time to have both a high priest and a high priestess, but some covens do. With me, I'm the sole high priestess. I don't have a high priest, so it's just me. You have to be experiencing real, significant, and permanently positive change for you to actually be a live, living, in the flesh, bona fide, genuine, authentic, anointed, appointed witch. Just because you are a member of a coven does not equal you being a witch. You have to ask yourself, are your spells working? Do you find yourself having to do the same spell over and over again with no results, with no real, significant, and permanently positive change? You have to ask yourself this question. You have to answer this question honestly. You have to. You have to. What is your life looking like ever since you joined this coven? You can leave. A coven is not a cult. You can leave a coven if it's not giving you real, significant, and permanently positive change, which is the birthright of every witch. The birthright of every witch is real, significant, and permanently positive change, and with no sorrow, and I do mean no sorrow added on, no grief, no regret about becoming a witch. A lot of covens are failing because the so-called high priest or high priestess has anointed themselves rather than be anointed by the queen of witches, Hecate. Hecate raises up witches, high priests, and high priestesses, and she also sits them down. If they refuse to step down, she will personally sit them down, and if they try to come back, she will sit them out permanently, right out of the earth. Hecate is mighty in the land. Hecate is mighty in the land. Hecate is mighty, powerful. Hecate is the past, the present, and the future. She is mighty in the land. The high priest, the high priestess must be mighty in the coven, meaning that they train witches for the day when they leave the coven and go out into the world and live a life that is magically blessed with no sorrow. Covens are not meant to be forever. They're not meant to last. A high priest, a high priestess is meant to train up a potential witch, give them all the tools that they need, and then release them back into the world so that they can make the real, significant, and permanently positive change in their own lives. Being a member of a coven is not permanent. There is an end date. Yeah. You know how you may have heard witches say, I've been in this coven for 10, 20, 40 years. That's not a coven. That's a club. That may even be a cult. But it's not meant to be that long. I would say to be a member of a coven for at least 3 years. And then the high priest, the high priestess, will release you out into the world so that you can make your own way. You can manifest real, significant, and permanently positive change through witchcraft, with the queen of witches, Hecate, adding her strength to your own efforts, doing real world action. Just because you are a member of a coven does not make you a witch. If your spells are not working, if your spells, rituals, hexes, and curses are not working, you are not a witch. You are much more like a magician, just playing with it, not taking it seriously. A lot of witches just do a spell and do nothing else. I just said that if you do a spell to pass a test, guess what? You still have to study for that test. It increases your spell to work. Increases the chances of that spell working. Increases the chances of that spell working. I'm not trying to discourage witches from joining covens, because I know some pretty good high priests and high priestesses that are phenomenal. Yeah, that was just thunder. That loud bang you just heard, that was thunder. It's raining, lightning, and thundering here in New York. And that was just like bang. So that was, what you just heard was thunder, like boom. So getting back to this, I just wanted to let you guys know that it wasn't a car crash. It was actually thunder. If you want to be a witch, you can join a coven. You can be by yourself. But you are only a witch if your spells work, not if you are a member of a coven. Some high priests, some high priestesses might say, well, you're not a real witch if you don't join a coven. That's a lie. You can be a witch and not be part of a coven. Oh, yeah, you actually can be. You actually can. You can be a witch and not be a member of a coven. And guess what? Also, your spells will still work as well as someone who is a member of a coven. Once again, I'm not trying to discourage anyone from joining a coven, but be smart about it. Be smart before you take on that responsibility of being a member of a coven. And your membership is not meant to last 10, 20, 40 years. That's a problem. That's not a coven. That's a club. A witch, in my personal opinion, should be in a coven for, at the very least, 3 years. Max, and then let out into the world and manifest their own real, significant, and permanently positive change through witchcraft. You can, I'm telling you, you are at liberty to join a coven. You are at liberty to join a coven if you want to. You are. But that does not automatically make you a witch. You can't say, oh, I'm in a coven, I'm a witch. Okay, when was the last time that your spell worked? Oh, well, that hasn't happened yet, but I've been a member for 10 years. These things take time. You don't have time. You don't have any more time. That's not a coven. That's not a high priest or high priestess. That's a club. There is no real, significant, and permanently positive change happening there. It's nothing. It's not a coven. That's not a high priest. That's not a high priestess. It's not. You are a witch if your spells work. You are not a witch just because you are a member of a coven. So I wanted to come on here tonight and just clear this up, because a lot of witches are not witches, and they believe that they are witches just because they are a member of a coven, and that's not true. You are a witch if your spells work. That's all that matters. So thank you, witches. Once again, I am going to upload this on my YouTube and Facebook pages in case you missed this live broadcast. Be sure to share this broadcast on your other social media platforms and tell a witch or two or three that there is a high priestess here. Once again, my name is High Priestess Orsa, who is anointed and appointed by the Queen of Witches to be a voice for witches who have ears to hear and hands to receive Hikate's best. Bye, everyone.